it's amazing how many of these themes have kind of emerged fairly organically. There's something about open source going on there for sure, about sharing stuff. Definitely something about the maker movement popping up. I was very glad to hear improvisation. Martin, you have got a mic. It is coming to you. As if by magic. Exactly, delivered by your daughter. Fantastic. So
I've trained her well. It's a general point about funding, really. I was discussing with Casper earlier about how people who know how to play the funding game tend to get the funding. It becomes like a kind of algorithm that you have to follow to get the right funding. It's often quite daunting for people who are more creative and don't know how to play that particular game. And in my view, particularly having seen the acoustic guys and hearing them talk, I think the amount of money it would take, seed funding it would take for great new ideas, for people who are self-motivated, who are creative, for them to get small amounts of money that take very little process to acquire that money will reap enormous rewards for the AHRC. I would definitely argue that till the cows come home.
I would agree entirely. I think alphas should be funded, and many alphas should sprout and then move to betas next. I think that's a kind of standard principle. But we have another comment over here. Hang on, sorry, 2 seconds. Here we go, behind you.
Now, you talk about funding, but actually AHRC are getting value from these people, so it shouldn't be treated as if they're sticking their hands out asking for money. It should be that they're actually earning it.
Sure.
And it's that complete mindset of creative people that they get driven into this thing, they need funding. Well, actually, in a very beautiful way, they need to go out and earn it, and they need to think of creative ways of understanding that their income streams are revenue and not just a plea for niceness.
Okay, controversial comment here. I see many hands popping up at this stage. Let's go back there. That was the first one I've seen, but we'll come to you next.
Hey, we've seen some really, really brilliant projects from students here today, and just thinking about that stream of funding and supporting the next generation into getting into these arts, I just wonder at what point we should be teaching them to learn how to apply for funding and how to get the next step up, not just introducing them to networks of really great contacts, but actually supporting their work as a profession as well.
I couldn't agree more, and certainly me and Joel are looking at stuff like that. But I also want to add that you're talking about easy access funding, and to name check the Watershed again, their Playable City award, which I urge anybody who's got an idea for a creative immersive intervention into urban architecture to apply for, is a one-pager, and it's literally name, email, write what you want in this 500 words, we will get back to you on that basis. And compare that to a standard funding application, it's a whole world of difference. I think there's another point to be made to address your point, sir. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. Supporting people to access these funding channels at this early stage in their careers is absolutely vital.
Yeah, I was just going to say, our experience is from, funding is something we're looking at, and it is a daunting and difficult challenge for us. But the thing that we find is when we try and do things, we get asked to play and perform and our artists to come for free to so many things, including the big London institutions. And, if we're not getting paid when we're playing the big London institutions, when are we going to get paid? And really, funding is great, means we can invest and we can do great projects. But also, we need to get, you need a day rate, right? You need to get paid for showing up, whatever it is, every day, to work, because running events it's work, and it is something that's really hard. The mentality is that we are there for CV points, and and everybody else gets paid, and I
still get that,
right? Exactly.
I'm a professor. I still get, you come and do it for free.
Exactly.
It'll look really good.
Yeah. So I think that's the hardest challenge to overcome.
But I do also think that alternative models such as crowdfunding are very exciting. Something like Patreon, for example, I think is a really good way for the community to completely bypass the top-level trickle-down funding and just go, hey, we like this stuff. We're going to give each other £5 a month because we believe in these projects, and suddenly you've got a sustainable community. Or perhaps not. More hands going up all over the place.
Just in response to that, though.
Yes,
we all pay taxes, so why should some people go and get their work crowdfunded while other people just walk into the institutions or the Tate or whatever, and you know.
It's a fair point. It's a fair point, and I think in a perfect world that wouldn't be necessary.
Yeah. But that wasn't my point. My point is, first of all, that somebody mentioned QuickTime VR earlier. I think it was Simon Poulter, and as somebody who was a digital artist as such 20 odd years ago, and indeed I was at school with Charles Babbage. No, see, that's it. They don't even know what I'm talking about. The point is that lots of the things that I saw being developed today, I've seen iterations of many years ago.
Sure.
I also think that individual artists, whether they be musicians or whatever discipline, or if they have many disciplines, are the people basically who, over time, have been developing independently, unfunded, whatever, lots of ideas and technologies and things that we see. Look at music, for instance. The music that comes from the street is what corporates use to advertise their product, yes? They very seldom use now music from chamber orchestras or whatever. So there's an issue there, but I think there's also an issue about diversity and plurality, because if we look around this room and if we look at the projects, then you will see a pattern in terms of who has access to it. And I don't think that that is because individuals like me, who may be a Schwarzer, have less to give to it, but as somebody said, we're either not inside this clique of people who are attached to academia, or we're not interested in being. But what we are, I think, is nearer to the ground, and so nearer to the public, and I think that we can inform this. In the mid-90s, I met people in the States, and Adobe and Apple had brought them in as artists, as visual artists, just to play with the software, because they had the technology, but they didn't know what to do with it. And I suspect we need to go back and have some more basic models, and not just have streams or initiatives where you have to kind of have a whole, charitable company set up in order to access the funding.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that
rant.
I would agree with that rant. There we go. A little round of applause for that rant. There we go. It's a day of rants. I was labelled a ranter by that man over there who's got his hand up as well. I'm going to throw some more mud at me, Simon.
No mud. I echo what was said by Ronnie there. What I think has been really interesting about today is just the kind of vibe when the radiophonic workshop guys started talking. The room just changed, and there's something about knowledge transfer and actually the kind of high bar of that work and the history of sound that emanates from that. I personally found that really inspiring, and I think that is the key to this kind of event. It's not just about funding, but it's about that makes me want to go out and make art.
Absolutely. And having Jack follow that, thank you, Jack, for your nod. That really was the full end of the spectrum. And I think hats off to the AHRC for making this event happen. At the very least, we can say this is where these conversations can flourish, and we can start sharing our knowledge. And it is happening. I think out there has been equally exciting, if not more so, than in here. And I think it's a testament to the curation and the timetabling that there's been enough time for people to really make those contacts. So, yes, I would agree with all of that. Anyone else?
It's following on from a Simon point earlier, and which was this idea of venues, because a lot of the time when you talk to people about structuring new arts and experiences, it's always if you can get hold of a venue. It's like Gudrun Gut and people from Female Pressure, Monica Werkstatt was saying the very same thing, get a venue. And you refer to the fact we don't have swanky big venues dedicated to this kind of work. So should that be something people come together on and make it a mission to try and go there? I know there's FACT in Liverpool, but I think you were talking about something more dedicated.
I think that was part of my rant also. Maybe it was misunderstood, but I certainly feel like there should be a centre for creative technology that is showcasing that work, and maybe it exists and I don't know about it, but I'm not sure that anywhere exclusively, and even FACT is a multimedia centre as far as I'm aware. Yes, this may have been another hornet's nest that we've stirred up, but yeah, I mean, obviously these places do exist on a lo-fi basis. I mean, you guys have spaces that you host stuff in, and it's happening very organically from the ground up. But once again, we're saying, where's the top down? There should surely be, if we want to foster creative digital excellence, in this country, surely there should be some kind of tangible institution that is championing that. Is it here? Is it? Oh, I don't know. Maybe it is.
Sorry, I was going to say, I have a problem with everything being attached to digital. I know we're in a building called Digital Catapult.
Fair enough, Mike. Good point.
But I think if we need anything, it's a centre for creativity, not digital creativity, because I believe it can ultimately be a barrier towards what people feel is acceptable. So implicit in a centre for creativity would be everybody's welcome to chuck in whatever creativity. That we're not short of technologists, we're not short of technology. What we're short of is a kind of a nexus for everything to come together and create something that's much bigger than the sum of the parts. I think Rich Mix, for instance, was meant to be that, but it proved not to quite, because they had to make money to justify themselves, so turned into a cinema, essentially. Interestingly enough, I ran an event called Future of Sound, which was just came to me one day. I thought it was a great idea. Malcolm was involved in it as well. And just applied to the Arts Council. They gave us some touring funding. And what we found was we went to different institutions, like it started at BAFTA, went to the Royal Institution. These are all fancy-ass places, right? But they were happy to donate the space because they need to be seen to be supporting creativity and new ways of thinking. And they actually have resources, but they'll not give you money. They will give you a resource for nothing. So it's not quite as bad as it appears. I'd just like to point that out. Oh, well, to be honest, I mean, it wasn't because I was opening the door because I was half, a Z-list celebrity. Yeah. I mean, but the thing is, if you don't ask, you don't find out. That's right, that's the point I'm making.
Sure, well, I think there's certainly an appetite for something there, and I think we can come at it from both directions, whether we create it from the ground up or campaign for something from the top down. There's no problem about hammering on both doors. But what I'd like to kind of maybe conclude on is the fact that this feels like the beginning of a community. Perhaps it needs to be more widely publicised and more accessible. But I've certainly felt like that this conversation has had a full range, a full spectrum here. Joel, do you want to say something? Go for it. There's a microphone coming.
I know it's great what we're doing here, what we're talking about. We're talking about future a lot. But sometimes you really do have to take a step back before you move forward. And, you could look at a lot of really creative movements in the past, whether it's the French New Wave happened because they didn't have technology that Hollywood had. Hip-hop happened because they didn't have access to the technology. Punk happened because they didn't have access to the technology. And there is a really, creative aspect to understanding the poverty of a medium at a certain point. It isn't always just about throwing money. Sometimes it is about space and culture.
DIY culture, absolutely.
And so, brother here is talking about what's happened from the street. It's, you can't put the street in a studio. You can't say, okay, let's have a street institution. It doesn't work. And, that's where it works very, very badly. And you end up with I'm loving. That's exactly. Every time I hear that, I still cringe at that notion of, we're doing street. Yeah. And so I think it's a really difficult thing because you want that, and then some of the technology says that you need money and stuff. But I think the things that these guys are doing here is a really classic example of going and getting stuff out of skips. Is sometimes the best reward, and it's a difficult balance. But I don't think it is all about funding and just getting a big space. Sorry.
I just kind of wanted to make the point from our point of view, like we all, none of us, I don't think any of us have had funding from arts councils. We all have 5 jobs at least. Sam makes a living from Patreon. I sell my writing. We all scrabble together bits and pieces. We don't have any funding. And actually, I don't necessarily think that it would be the best thing to do. We're at the point now where we're looking for something a bit more concrete, but certainly not coming from a place of ever having had any money. And
the problem with funding is you can't do whatever the fuck you want.
Well said, Sam, well said. Well, on that bombshell, I think we'll call it a day, ladies and gentlemen. But thank you so much for being part of this. We're going to have 2 performances. The first is a science fiction improvised performance with music using the ambisonic setup we have here. That takes place at 6 o'clock with me and Project 2. Join us if you're a fan of science fiction and music and ambisonics. And then at 7 o'clock we got Offal. So please stick around. And yes, thank you for a great day. We're already planning the next one. So hopefully this will be a regular occurrence. And finally, you all get a going home present, which is a free T-shirt and tote bag. Big score. Thank you again, and hopefully see you back here at 6. Well done, folks.